Hello and welcome to Knife Delights. This is a Muskrat Monday. This is an open tag that was put out by Gunslinger Cal. Folks, there's another great channel that you need to check out. Gunslinger Cal has a great collection and I appreciate it so much for him putting out this open tag. Go check out Gunslinger Cal. Give him a sub. Let's help his channel grow. I also want to mention Rasputin's Castle. He did a response to this open tag last week, a week ago, and he had a Schrade Muskrat model 787, just like I'm going to be showing here. So make sure and check out his video. Give him a sub. Another great channel. Folks, we're blessed here in the knife community. We got knife channels just popping up all over the place. Kind of like playing that whack-a-mole thing, right? You think you got all the channels memorized and two or three more of them pop up over there. It's wonderful to see all these different knives, meeting all these fine gentlemen. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Check out those two channels. So let's get to the muskrats here. So what I have here on the bottom, this is the Schrade model 787. And it was probably made sometime in the 1970s or later. Now, I did a video on this. Oh, it's been over a year or so ago. I'll put a link to it. And I tell a pretty funny story in there, a story from my childhood and an old man, if you will. He used to take me out on his trap lines in the wintertime. And, well, it's a funny story about a skunk. So anyway, I'll put a link to that in there, and I talk about this. One reason I wanted to participate in this is because I probably didn't give out the best information on this knife, and I learned something new. And I bought this knife because you can see there it says Improved Muskrat there on the shield. And when I did my original video, Tobias Gibson, the professor as I call him, was very gracious and left some information on this pattern of knife. Now you can see these blades have been well used. Somebody really used this knife. But I'm quoting from Tobias Gibson here. From what I understand, the improvement of the improved Muskrat was Hawbaker putting a second spring in the Muskrat. Earlier Muskrats had both blades on a single spring. Stanley Hawbaker contracted with Schrade for the production and sold the improved Muskrats through his stores and outdoor magazines. The man was a legend in his own times. The Hawbaker Special was an improved Muskrat with a long sheep's foot blade, also a design that H. Stanley Hawbaker came up with. So thank you, Tobias, for that clarifying information. Now, I can't tell. These blades are so worn. I can't tell if these were two clip point blades or if this was a Hawbaker Special because this was a sheep's foot. I don't think that's a sheep's foot. Disregard what I just said. I think those were probably both clip point blades right there. But it's hard to say. Like I said, it's well worn. But there's a look at the tang stamp there. Schrade, New York, USA, 787. So again, well worn. Of course, you got Delrin inlays there, jigged. And again, it is improved because it has a spring for each blade. And we got some really nice brass liners there too, don't we? Okay, so that is our Schrade, and you know, a muskrat pattern is technically a double-ended jack is what it is, because you got a blade coming out from opposite ends there. So now let's take a look at this buck. Now, Buck did things just a little bit different on their muskrat model. But here we have the traditional logo shield there. And you can see it is a traditional Muskrat in that it has a single spring. So both blades share that spring. But what Buck did is they have a clip point blade and they have a spay blade. So instead of a trapper where they both come out at the same end, they put one out on each end. That way you have a choice of blades. Now it gets confusing because there's a moose pattern out there, and I've been trying to figure out what's the difference between a moose and Buck style of Muskrat, because a moose supposedly has like a clip point and a sheep's foot coming out from opposite ends, being a double-ended jack. From what I understand, the difference is you can see the Muskrat is on a serpentine frame, just like this one is, where a moose is going to be on an equal-ended frame or a cigar-shaped frame. And just for an example, here's this Cutmaster Camp knife, but that's an equal-ended knife too, or a cigar-shaped knife. So that would be the difference between a moose and a Muskrat like this. Now this one was made in between 1972 and 1986, based on that tang stamp, because you don't see a date symbol. And I didn't pull the box, but I believe this one, the manufacturer date on the box shows 1994. Well, how can that be? Well, Buck never did make the Muskrat. All the Muskrat models from the Buck line were made by Camillus. So probably what they did is they had tons and tons or thousands or hundreds of these blades already stamped out, by 1986. And so, for the next few years, they just used up pre-existing stock. So that's why you can have a tang stamp that reflects an earlier year than when the knife was actually made. But I did confirm, again, Buck had a lot of their slip joints originally contracted first through Schrade and then by Camillus, and then Buck started making their own as soon as they got the tooling and their own expertise to do them. But as far as I know, from everything I've read, Buck never did make the Muskrat. So you can see it's a little different design. And this is one of the later ones, because there's 3 different versions of this Buck Muskrat. There are subtle differences, and it has to do with the easy opening or nail notch right there, and you have one there. So on the later models, you have a nail notch on both sides, one for each blade. Some of the earlier models only had it on one side. And it has to do something to do with some of the stamping on the pile side of the blades. So they were subtle differences, but this is the basic Buck Muskrat 313. And the Schrade Improved Muskrat. Yeah. The blades are no good on this one. But I spent a few dollars in an antique store because I wanted that shield. Improved Muskrat by Schrade. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, check out these other 2 channels, Gunslinger Cal and Rasputin's Castle. I think you'll get a lot of entertainment and then get a lot of knowledge watching their channels. So until next time, have a very delightful day. And hey, don't forget to check out the playlist in the bottom right-hand corner.